God wants the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer, and so should you. And I'm going to show you at the end of today's video the one thing which will stop you from getting richer and richer. So make sure you stick around until the end. I can already see Christians thinking about what I've already said and thinking to themselves, well, no, I just don't agree with this. And I'm just going to be completely honest. There was a point in time where I felt the same way. In different times in the past where I found myself in financial difficulty, when I found myself poor in health, poor in different things in life, I used to think to myself, why are the rich always getting richer? And then it became clearer and clearer to me that regardless of what I thought on this matter, didn't matter. What God thought about this matter is what mattered most. And I'm going to give you an example. So I'm just going to be real. I used to hate the fact that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And I'm even talking not only just outwardly, I'm talking subconsciously, internally, as I began to recollect and think about just my life and think about these different things. It became obvious to me as I analyzed myself that I hated the fact that rich people get richer and poor people get poorer. And that was because I didn't really think about it. I didn't meditate on the fact that this is a godly principle. So I remember years ago, I would watch live streams, for example, different people doing different live streams on different topics. And there's these things called super chats. This is where people can donate to the particular channel, and they can send money in and stuff like this. And you got these different colors and all this different kind of stuff. And I remember seeing certain channels, massive channels, get super chat after super chat after super chat after super chat. And I used to feel at certain times why are they getting the super chats? I need the super chats. They is that extra $100? Is that $500 that somebody just gave them? Really, do they need it? Should they have it? Shouldn't me, who needs better equipment, needs more resources, more books, more programs, more stuff to get better, I need it. I should be getting those super chats. So I'm just giving you that as an example, just one example to help you understand where I was coming from mentally to where I'm at now, where I can confidently say God wants the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer. Because the first thing you have to realize is, I mentioned this previously, it's not about what I think about this topic. It's about what God thinks about this topic. So as it began to dawn on me more and more that, okay, cool. If God wants the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer, I just like to be very logical in life. My thinking is, well, how do I get myself into a position where I can be the rich that's getting richer and richer and richer? So you have to stop being resistant. Stop hating the fact when you see people that are successful getting more successful, when you see people who are healthy getting even healthier, when you see people who are doing different things and are being rewarded for it more and more, and it even seems easier and easier. That's going to be my next point. Don't hate it. The more you are resistant to it, the more you're going to find yourself in a position where you're on the poor side of this equation and the poor are getting poorer. This is examples like money. You'll see certain people who continue to grow in money, where certain people continue to struggle. You see people who are healthy get healthier and healthier, and it gets even easier. I mentioned this previously, the super chats, right? Loads of different stuff. But I remember times you'd have big YouTube channels or big businesses, big business owners. People are sending them stuff. Hey, use this. Hey, try this. And in my mind, I'm you've got all the best equipment. People are still sending you equipment. Send me some equipment. It's easy to trap yourself what they're doing is stopping what I'm doing. When the truth is, those two scenarios are not linked at all. Not in the way you think anyway. So as I got over this, one of the things I started to observe was that success, as you analyze this, it gets easier and easier the more successful you become. And when you think about it, it makes sense that it should work that way. So when I thought about this more and more, I'm okay, cool, I mentioned previously, if God desires the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer, how do I get into the slipstream of the rich so I can become richer and richer and richer in all these different areas in life? It's the same thing with success. I asked myself, okay, cool. I've stopped thinking about the fact that I don't like that these people are continuing to be more wealthy and more successful and healthier and all these different kind of things. And I've pivoted and I've changed it to, okay, cool. How do I find myself on that pathway? Because the truth is, there are many Christians out there who are in difficult situations. And the truth also is that many of those Christians are in those difficult situations because they're not following the Bible the way God desires them to. But think about it like this, right? Let's say, for example, I start a business and I make thousands of dollars a month, right? What does that help me do? I can now teach other people how to make thousands of dollars a month, especially if I was paying attention to what I was doing to make thousands of dollars a month, right? Let's say I create a new product, which I do from time to time, and I sell that product very quickly. But what can I do now? I can show other people how to create and sell a product very quickly. I created this product recently called Cash Flow for Christians. And it's basically showing Christians, any Christian who's tired of working 40 plus hours a week, I show them how they can take their hobby, their passion, or their expertise and turn it into profit in 7 days or less, really in 24 hours or less. Why can I help Christians with that scenario? Because I know exactly what to do. So because years and years and years ago, I started a business, and because I was relatively successful in that business, I can now show other people how to do it. So it becomes easier for me to make more and more money because of the steps I've taken in the past. And this was me realizing, okay, cool, there's things I've done in the past that can help me right now move further, faster, because I've done them in the past. This is the same concept of how people who are successful get more successful. But what happens when people buy my product called Cash Flow for Christians, and then they follow what I'm saying, and then they get the results? I've got more evidence, I've got more success, and that makes even more success for me in the future. Because if I've got testimonials of people saying, well, you know what, I followed what Israel said in Cash Flow for Christians. I made the content he said. I sold the way he told me to sell. I delivered the way he told me to deliver, and I got the result. Then that makes more people, more Christians decide to come in and say, you know what, I'm tired of working my 40 hours a week. I'm tired of working around the clock, missing my family's lives, etc. I'm tired of not being the person in full entirety that God desires me to be. I'm going to now go and take Cash Flow for Christians. You see how it works, and it gets faster and faster and faster the more people go into the system. Why? Because of the things that I've done previously. Because at a point in time in life, I decided and realized, you know, okay, cool. If God desires this to happen, how do I find myself? How do I put myself in a scenario for this to be working for me, the rich get richer side, opposed to it working against me, the poor get poorer side? Now I want to talk about an example. And it's always great for us to have biblical example of the stuff we're talking about. And the greatest example I think about is the first example we see in the Bible. And this is what we see as the garden. Because in the garden, we see this quite clearly. God creates the whole world. He creates this garden environment for Adam and Eve. And notice what's set up. He says to them, be fruitful and multiply, right? That's the rich getting richer. But they're surrounded by all this fruit, which does what? It multiplies. So the trees, the garden, the fruit, everything has been created by God, and it's to be perpetually multiplying. What is that? That's fruit producing more fruit and more fruit and more fruit and more fruit. And Adam and Eve, what? To do what? To produce more fruit and more fruit and more fruit, the fruit of the womb. They are to grow and to get stronger and bigger and wider, to multiply. And the reason this is such a great example is because when you think to the end of the Bible, Revelation, it's the same scenario. The tree of life shows up again, it's continuing to multiply its fruit. It's the same situation. The point is, from the beginning to the end, this is God's ideal environment, an environment which multiplies, an environment where it continues to grow, it continues to be fruitful. So when I think about examples like this in the Bible, I say to myself, well, am I being fruitful, or is my fruit lacking, or is my fruit rotting and I'm not having fruit, etc. And we spoke about Genesis, we spoke about Revelation briefly. I want to talk about a passage in the Bible which mentions this clearly. Like, I'm not even going to mention like the parable of the talents, other than just what I'm doing now, which basically presents the whole point. I may do a video about it in the future, but I want to talk about this passage here, John chapter 15, because notice what happens here. This is Jesus speaking, and he says in verse 2, every branch in me that bears not fruit, he takes away. What is that? That's the poor getting poorer. Why is that? Because God desires the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer. Notice what he says. And this is the contrast, the opposite. Every branch that bears fruit, what happens to it? He purges it. He prunes it. He's handling it in a way to do what? That it may bring forth more fruit. So the point you need to realize is God, the physical representation of this in the garden was what? Produce more fruit, multiply. Here now again in John chapter 15, Jesus is speaking about his followers, God's children, to do what? Multiply. If you're not multiplying, what you have is going to be taken. It's not going to be blessed. It's not going to be added to. But for those who are being fruitful, God is going to make it for you where you are producing even more fruit. And this is the key. I mentioned this previously, right? I'm having this realization. I'm like, okay, cool. If God wants the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer, and I want to get into the slipstream, right? I want to be getting more blessed and richer in all these different areas of my life. How do I do this? It's by what? Me sacrificing what I believe and what I think, my hate for the rich getting richer, and just aligning with what God says. And this is what Jesus says here in John chapter 15 as well. He says what? Notice he says, as the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, right? You can't just be some stray branch bearing fruit unless it is attached to the tree, to the vine. No more can you except you abide in me, right? So what you have to realize is God is going to make you fruitful by you being attached to him, following his word, not being detached, not doing what you want to do or what you think. I could have thought as much as I like. No, the rich getting richer is evil and the poor getting poorer is evil. As much as I could have meditated on that day and night. It wouldn't have changed what God has set up in his word. The other day I was working out, right? And I was working out. It was the first day of the week for me working out, and I'm working out and I couldn't finish the workout. And I remember like the first day is always the hardest. And I remember like the next day I was coming to work out, and because I didn't finish that first day, in my mind I was just like, oh, like this is so difficult and all this different kind of stuff. And I quickly had to catch myself. Every time I was thinking these thoughts, I was like, no, you know what? You're going to finish next time. It's going to be easier next time. As much as my body is saying to me no, as much as my mind is trying to fight and get to me and say no, it's going to be difficult. You didn't make it last time. You didn't complete the mission last time. I'm saying to myself, no, the rich get richer. It's success gets easier as time goes on. The second time I came to exercise, I finished. And for the rest of the week, I finished the exercise. And you know what happened? As the week went on, I got stronger and stronger and stronger. And it was easier for me to complete the workout. Most people don't get to that point in life. Why? Because after day one, if they ever get to day one, because it was so difficult, because it felt so difficult, they think, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore, and they stop. Instead of coming back again on day two and saying, I've done this before, I'm going to be better than I was last time. And that's what catapults you into more and more success. And this is one of the frameworks I think about when I work out throughout the week and when I do multiple different things in life. It's always going to be the hardest in the beginning. And as much as it seems like and feels like the next time you do this is going to be just as bad, it's not going to be. You have to fight through and break through that resistance and do it. And then you'll start to reap the results. And this is the same thing when it comes to the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. I wasn't where I wanted to be in many different areas in my life when I realized this, truly realized this. But I didn't say, you know what, because I'm not where I am, I'm going to stop myself from getting to where I want to get to, where I know God has called me to go. I started taking those steps in order to take the steps which rich people who are rich in God, were taking in order to get the results that those people are getting as well. And it's the same thing I encourage you to do. I mentioned earlier on, there's one thing which will stop you from making this a reality. And that's why I want you to watch this video right here, because it's going to show you how your mindset may be robbing you of your millions. That's the poor getting poorer. But how your mindset can actually lead you to making millions. That's the rich getting richer. Watch that next. Go win, and God bless winners.